Okay, so here's our leather, and what's really nice about it is I had to play with it and just put it on the book for a second. And you can see the compartments are actually showing through, like the image of Christ on the Turin Shroud. I've actually got an image of the back of the book here, which is really convenient because it means I know exactly where to die stamp. Right there. So that's actually really kind of useful. But before we get to that, the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to be putting this leather through a lot of reviews. So we're going to be stamping it, we're going to be soaking it, we're going to be gluing it. So the first thing to do is to treat it with a whole bunch of leather consolidants. So I'm going to do that first. There we go. All the way down. Really spreading it evenly. Just for the record, it absolutely stinks of propanol now. So there we go. Something under the speck of something on the table. All right, there we go. So that's going to stop, hopefully, any significant show through of glue or darkening caused by the glue when we do finally adhere this to the book. So that was an important first step. So, and the other good news is it's a little fainter, but I can still see the outline of the compartments right there. That's helpful. So I'm going to put that to one side, and what we're now going to do is experiment with how the leather takes stamping. The way we're probably going to have to put this on is we want it to shrink tight and basically grab the boards when we glue it to the book, and leather shrinks when it dries, so we're going to have to put it on damp. So we'll be stamping the leather while it's damp, and then probably dampening it even further, and then gluing it on the book. So what we need to do is experiment, close to an experiment as we can get. We're going to wet this, and then see if we can actually stamp and wet it again, and we'll see whether the stamping actually sort of remains or just disappears. So that's what we're going to test here next. Okay, this has had a good opportunity to absorb the water, which it did very well. So this is now nice and damp. So what we're going to do is we're going to die stamp the word test directly into the leather here. So line that up. Now, There we go. It's not focusing very well, but just about make that out. The word test just banged in there without any real attempt at spacing or accuracy. Now, what we're going to do is let this dry, then we're going to wet it again, and we'll see if the lettering remains. So what I've done, basically these are separated by 3/8 of an inch, except for the letter I, where the gap's just reduced to, what would it be? 1/4 inch. That marks the edge of the first letter. So these are all midpoints of the letters. So this is commentaria. This is the word concordiam. Then I've got just there. Let's give it a go. Okay. I think this is going to work. It ain't perfect, but it's good enough. So the way I'm going to do this is work from the back of the book forward, and that'll help me just get the right tension, I think, in place. I've got some shims in here. That's just stopped me putting a whole load of glue onto the last page of the book, which wouldn't be good. But literally now I am painting and decorating, just painting on the glue. Yes. And then good amount of glue is going to be required on the board edge. Mustn't neglect the upper and lower edges as well. So those. These edges we may end up just finessing and basically doing twice, but the first thing is just to make sure that we actually get the main areas of the leather secured on the book.
glue goes all the way over the card. The other thing we need to bear in mind, of course, is that we've already done a lot of work on this book using this glue. So that's why we kind of need to move quickly, because otherwise the edges here, the cardboard will start to actually soften and we'll lose structural integrity, which we certainly don't want. So that's why I'm moving quite fast here. Usual rule applies with the spine. The glue goes on the cardboard, never on the fabric or the raised bands. Okay, let's see if we can get this back piece on first. I have never done this, so I'm either about to make a huge mistake or just appreciate the fact that I've hopefully been blessed with good guidance. Okay, so I want it to be roughly in position. We can always move it and work it slightly to get positioning perfect, particularly leave the area we've stamped here at the back, but at least if it's approximately there, so just eyeball the back here, make sure that I've got this sitting between two raised bands, which it is. That's working good. And it looks level, which is good too. Okay. Hopefully as I bring this forward. This bizarrely reminds me of putting up a cover on the case of a phone. On the, the screen of a phone. Basically similar process. You need to work out, get rid of the bubbles and so on and so forth. Got way too much leather at this leading edge here. The leather has expanded a little bit, so I'm going to have to trim these corners anyway shortly, but I'm just going to, there's just way more here than we need, so take that off. Okay, lift this up. The shims are protecting the text block from all this horrible glue. Now what we need to do, this is the point at which we're going to do some diagonal cuts so that we can actually do a fold over. I'm not going right to the edge of the board because obviously we need to account for the thickness of the board, which is quite significant with this book. This is the point at which we're in effect going to set the tension that this leather is going to experience. So this bit we need to just get reasonably accurate. A little bit of extra width here, so I'm going to just take that off. Like so. All right. Now I'm going to start the process of folding the leather in on itself. Now, if you've seen me do this before when in some of the other restorations, you will know what I typically do is just put a bit of glue here, because we're not going to be, this bit of leather here is going to be basically adhered to itself. It's not going to be adhered to the book. So we're going to do a fold over. Oops. Okay. Okay. So the leather folds over here on itself, isn't it? slightly out of shot probably at the moment. I'm actually just doing the same thing to the bottom of the book. Okay. There's still quite a lot of water in this leather, which we need, but it's also a little inconvenient. I'm just going to make sure that I have enough glue just on this inside edge here. Like so. Okay. We made a start and the world did not end. What I'm now going to do is place a couple of shims vertically actually on the text block. What that just does is it will enable me to put a lot of pressure, a lot of weight on this book to actually force the leather to bind, while keeping obviously the leather separate from, and the glue critically separate from the pages of the text block. Okay, let's have a look. Let's make sure. See that? That's what we want. The die stamping nicely in the middle of the spine. Alright, now we can continue the process of painting on the glue. Beauty, the second phase should be a little easier because we'll be doing the edges last instead of first, which means we'll be able to give them more attention, not having to worry too much about the positioning of the rest of the leather, which is important because this is obviously the front cover is the cover that people, that's what people look at, and that needs to be done. Alright, so now we're in a position to bring this leather over. Again, I'm going to focus on where I've stamped because I want that to be nice and central, which it is. And again, we want to smooth out the bubbles just like we would with a screen protector on a phone. And this is important because what we want is to start to get a bit of tension in. Okay, that's looking good. Fold this up like that. Fold this guy down. And now we're in a position that we can start to focus on the edges. So let's do the foredge first. I really don't want to be getting glue on the outside of the leather, so I need to clean that up quite quickly. Good. Now, you need some shims again. Don't want to get glue or moisture on the... Okay, that's looking good. Right, now we're in a position to trim our corners. Same method. edges. And the bottom edge. Oops, sorry to those watching. That was a bit of a violent shake. There we go. Okay. Fold these up. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be doing quite a bit of work now to secure these edges. I'm going to build a brace, like I do with all my other restorations, to really pull this leather in and make sure that we start to get these raised bands emerging there. But also I want to make sure that the leather doesn't start to creep over these corners as it wants to shrink. So there's going to be shims here and here, a bunch of shims here, ties here to give the tension. And then this book just needs to do a whole load of drying, because we'll take it from there. But yeah, that's it. The leather's on. Okay, so I've just put a clips protected with a bit of paper just on each of the corners. That's to stop the leather sort of retreating, where I've sort of on the inside edge, as it starts to dry. And also just to try and keep the, where I've mended a corner with using glue and tissue, I want that to sort of retain its shape. There's quite a bit of tension, as you can see, in the brace. So it's, sort of biting into the spine, so these raised bands show through. And I might actually just spend some time literally just working my finger along here quite forcefully, just to really get the leather to give and go in and conform to what the tie is trying to make it do. One of the drawbacks of this is there's a little bit of, I need to make sure the leather really sort of bites down here, because obviously because of these, the ties aren't doing that. So I need to sort of just work this down with my finger as well. Make sure that no bubbles form. Obviously the top and tail are sort of folded in, so the leather glued to itself. So I'm just making sure that stays as well. But really now it's just about, making sure it dries evenly and so on. And it's a reasonably low humidity day today, so I'm hoping that we should have a good view of this a little bit later on this afternoon to share. Here we go, the leather is on.